This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and beaming in today is my buddy and also my film editor and director of photography of Interlude, Mr. Joshua Irwin. How are you, Josh?
Doing pretty good, Jonathan. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, sure. Now, did you have? We're doing this the day after Christmas. Did you and your family have a nice Christmas?
We did. We had a pretty wonderful Christmas. We kept it simple, but that's, kind of the best way when you have a wife and three kids. We just kind of hung out with ourselves, with family. We went over to my parents' house. My dad irritated me. I irritated him. That's just kind of how it goes. My brother made gumbo, so it was fun.
Ooh, gumbo. I do love a good gumbo.
And my brother's the really good cook in the family, so we've kind of defaulted to letting him cook for family gatherings, and he did a really good job. I got to hand it to him.
Well, my wife's parents came, and Papa is the main chef of the family. At least he wants us all to know that. So he made his famous spaghetti sauce on night number 2, and then he made this thing that sounds worse than it actually was. He made a chocolate log. No. This one was made out of real chocolate and bread, and it's an Austrian recipe. He's originally from Austria. His parents are originally from Austria. He was born in France, but it's this wonderful roll of pastry and chocolate, and it sort of comes out looking like a giant croissant, and you just kind of cut little pieces like this. So as they were driving away earlier on today, I saying, we'll miss you. And my wife is, tearing up. And I'll miss your bread. I'll miss the chocolate log. So anyway, God bless us all, everyone. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year now, because this will probably be going up in a few days. So anyway, Josh has just re-released Agent of New Worlds after releasing it initially on Halloween of this past year. And it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. I'm hoping you folks loved it. You already watched it, above earlier on the blog. But apparently, it wasn't good enough for Josh.
I've been joking for a few weeks that I'm Jonathaning myself because I just kind of, I don't know. I watched it again, and I was just like, I wasn't happy with it. I felt like I could do better, and that there were some things that I wanted to do. And initially I was kind of like, I'll just let that stuff go. But then I was like, no, I really want to do it. And I think there was kind of a consensus amongst everyone that we wanted to take another crack at 2 shots in particular. So we all sort of just decided to give it another go. And I'm pretty happy with what we have. What'll probably happen is this one will stay up for a while, labeled as Film Fest version, and then the other one will eventually get zapped, and then this will just be the only version that's up, and it'll just be Agent of New Worlds. So.
Oh, don't zap it. Leave it up there for archive, because here's the thing. I'm going to link to it from my blog, and if it goes down, you can take it unlisted if you wanted to, but I mean, I don't want like in 2 or 3 years, to go through all of my dead links and discover that my original version of Agent of New Worlds was in there. But just in case you do take it down, we're going to do a slightly different kind of interview since, well, first of all, I've already covered Agent of New Worlds in the making of it during production and post-production. So there's lots and lots of blogs out there. And eventually I'm going to get Josh on with the movers and shakers of the Avalon Universe again. We'll talk a little bit about Agent of New Worlds and their participation in it, and then also their next upcoming projects, because those are very, very exciting, and they're going to start crowdfunding again.
And we're only about 2 weeks away from filming again now.
Oh, that's cool. And you're going to be filming at Warp 66 Studios again? Is that where you're going to be?
Yeah, we're going to be filming at Warp 66 Studios. We're going to be filming on location somewhere, and we're going back to Neutral Zone. So we're going to be pretty busy here pretty quick.
So once again, you're going to be driving long distances.
I like driving long distances.
You have to.
It doesn't bother me. I don't know what it is. I enjoy the drive.
Folks, for those of you who don't know, Agent of New Worlds, Josh put more than 5,500 miles on his vehicle with him behind the wheel, just getting from point A to point B to point C to point B to point A, back to point A. And just all over the frickin' place. I don't think anybody is ever going to be driving 5,000 miles for a single fan film. You've got the record for the longest time, I think. So anyway, so we're going to do things a little bit differently on this interview, because all we really need to do is to look at the changes that Josh made. We're going to be showing the before version, then we're going to show the after version, and then each time I think there's like 13 changes that Josh gave me a list of. I've got them all here on my phone, which you can't see because I'm holding it up. Let's see, there we go. And then I have to scroll and show it to my face. There we go. And then here's that list, which I don't think you can see. Yeah, this is totally not working. Oh, there it is. That's a list. So I'm going to go through this, and then Josh is going to tell me what he changed, how he changed it, why he changed it, and then you can decide if you think it's better in the new version or not. That's you who are watching this, not you, Josh.
I went to myself and I said, "Here's my notes."
There's your notes. So let's look at the first one. So at 1 minute and 59 seconds, this guides me when I insert the images afterwards. It says new shuttle VFX shot. So let's take a look at the original version. And now here's the new version. Ooh, pretty. I think we all knew why you changed that shuttle shot.
It was a situation where even Sam kind of felt like he could do a little better with it. We rushed it initially, and it was doing like a shuttle on a planet is not something he's really done a whole lot of. And so he saw it as an opportunity to like grow as an artist, especially with the lighting, that sort of thing. And so he and I sort of tag teamed this, where he created certain new elements. And then what he did was he sent me the folder that had the After Effects project in it and all the elements. And so I downloaded that, and then I opened it up in After Effects, and I did some compositing myself. So I added the smoke, I added the fire trail. I kind of took away and played with some of the elements he had there. We did a mask with the kind of the dead cactus there next to the shuttle.
You killed the cactus.
It was dead when we got there, thankfully, in real life. But we shot in this is White Tank Mountain. It's not a state park; it's like a federal park, but it's a park outside of Phoenix, Arizona, nature preserve type place. It was 100 degrees the day that we shot there. I think it was probably over 100. It was the end of May, like very end of May, early June. Pixie's boots melted when we shot this scene. It was so hot that her boots melted.
But it's a dry heat.
It was a dry heat, and I really, being from Arkansas, I didn't understand that until I was out in it, and it was over 100 degrees. But I was like, man, I could do this all day because it wasn't bugging me. But then you come back here in Arkansas at 80 degrees with the humidity, it's like you're dying. So I actually kind of enjoyed it. My lips got real chapped. My nose was bleeding from it being so dry, but we had fun doing it. And so we did just kind of a second crack at this shot. You had the suggestion, Jonathan, that we do like a streak, like a skid mark on the ground leading up to the shuttle. And I thought about doing that. And then I thought might be more fun to do like a Back to the Future style DeLorean fire trail instead. So I did that.
I noticed that. I saw that. I was like, that's a DeLorean right there.
Exactly. So that's an homage to Back to the Future, which of course you got to do with Tyler, and Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. So, and then I put in some sounds with the smoke and the fire there. So there you go. That's that first shot.
All right. Well, let's take a look at shot number 2. The pretty quick one, added a ringed planet in the sky. So let's look at what the sky looked like without a ringed planet. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the ringed planet. Alrighty, I mean that's probably pretty easy for you to do, right? Did
Yeah.
Sam render your ring planet for you? Is that?
No, I have. You can go and buy stock elements like that. Like you can buy planets, and there's a thing called the Big Sky Kit.
How
And
much
then
for just the planet?
well, when
That's
you
a
buy the
joke.
kit, yeah, when you buy the kit, it all just comes with it. And then, I have some subscription services to some things, like that's where I got the smoke and the fire trails and stuff like that. So you can go out and people just made this stuff for you, and you can find it and do all kinds of fun stuff with it. It's pretty subtle effect, but I just figured it'd make a difference to just throw a planet up there in the sky, which would actually make the celestial body that this takes place on a moon, because
Yeah.
it's obviously orbiting the larger planet. So it's a desert moon. And this is, of course, that same day where Pixie's boots melted when she was walking across the desert like this. We were only out there for about 2.5 hours that day, but it was a lot of fun, and it's the only element of the Phoenix shoot that survived to the final film.
Oh, that's the only one. Just the shuttle of the Pixie
Well,
walk, a little of the Pixie walk.
this opening scene is the only, because we shot almost a good portion of the film out there, almost all of the film out there that takes place on the planet. We shot a good portion of that, like 75% of it, and then had to reshoot it. But this was the only thing from Phoenix that survived, because it didn't have the other actor in it that we had to fire.
Yeah, the bad things happen with other actor that we shall not speak. We shall not speak of her. Now everything. What am I missing? What are you not telling you? Don't worry about it. All right. So the next thing is at 4:43. There is a new phaser beam. So let's look at the old phaser beam first. And now the new phaser beam. And what the heck was wrong with the old phaser beam?
There was nothing really wrong with the old one. I just kind of wanted to have a little bit more fun with the new one. And so the subtle changes in the new one, and you have to really look to see it. First off, it doesn't just kind of materialize, it spits out. It has a little bit of a, action where it moves from the nozzle across the screen. So it doesn't just all appear at once. There's a blast that goes across, and it's very, very short. You have to look for it. And then this plugin that I found, and it's actually called Saber, and people use it to make lightsabers. But you can do other stuff with it. You can do like Ghostbusters particle beams and all of that kind of stuff. Previously, in the past, I was using like the stock, Adobe After Effects beam setting, and doing a few things to make it look a little bit more particle beam like. But this was a great plugin that my friend Neil suggested to me. And so if you really keep your eye on the phaser beams, there's some stuff on the fringe of it, some particle-like effects, some little energy that dances around it, some kind of electroplasmic stuff, but you have to like really look at the beam, but it is there. And it's fun, that's just part of the fun of doing this, is the creative stuff like that. Of course, she didn't kill anybody. There were in fact no Klingons.
No actual Klingons were harmed in the filming of
no
this
Klingons
episode.
were harmed, right? We didn't actually kill David Butler Agronsoni.
Oh, that was David. Okay,
That was David. Cool. Yeah, it was David, and the young man with him was named Jude Nyheiser, and he is the oldest son of one of our producers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Keeping the family.
Nice guy too, and he did kind of the art on the Romulan gun. He took like a regular Nerf gun and painted it and did some fun effects to it to make it look more like an alien gun.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's see. Our next one is the 1345. So we skipped a while from 443 to 1345. Another new shuttle VFX shot. I suppose if you redid one, you had to redo the other. So let's take a look at the first one.
It would take a lot of effort to tune it the other way around. We just happened to crash within 3 kilometers of the source. This isn't some coincidence.
And now here's the new crashed shuttle at night.
It would take a lot of effort to tune it the other way around. We just happened to crash within 3 kilometers of the source. This isn't some coincidence.
Okay, so obviously Sam did your second shot as well. So what exactly happened, first of all, to result in the first shot being something that you didn't like? Because I know that, usually you go back and forth with Sam and you refine stuff or whatever. So, what happened to make the first shot not work for you? And then the second shot, what process did you go through to,
Right.
I mean, like, how long did it take him to actually get it done for you, I suppose?
It didn't take him that long. We all just sort of were talking about it. We have meetings after we do things, like if we do a shoot, we have a meeting after the shoot to talk about how we think it went. We had kind of a meeting after the release of the first film, and I just kind of was like in that going, I think we can do better than this. And I was like really hard on myself. And, I think Sam kind of wanted to take another crack at it too. So he and I and Aaron had a conversation and kind of brainstormed some thoughts about what we could do differently. And Sam came up with some elements, some grass and some cactuses and things that he threw in there. And then he kind of played around with the angle of the shuttle and then the lighting of that. And then again, it was the same sort of thing where he sent me the folder, and I took that folder and I did some of my own stuff, like the stars and stuff in the sky I put in there. And I did the zoom. And then there's like if you look in the window, we made the windows match when we saw the duo inside of the shuttle. There was kind of this half broken lighting effect where the lighting was going in and out. And I was able
that was cool. That was very cool to watch.
And yeah, so we replicated that in the shuttle windows. And that was literally a matter of going to that scene where they're inside the shuttle, one of those shots, and selecting a part of the wall where that light was reflecting off of, and then texture mapping it to the windows there. So it worked out pretty good.
So from start to finish for Sam redoing the shot, how long did that take?
Both of those shots he did in just a few days. So he did it. Yeah, he did it pretty fast. And then he sent it to me. And then I did my composites and my final touches that I did on him in a few hours. And he did a great job. He sent me everything with Alpha Channel. I mean, he had it figured out as far as what would make it really easy for me to do what I needed to do. So it was super, super easy.
And let me interject a question in the discussion of the shots. So you released this on October 31st, and then you re-released it on the day after Christmas. So obviously you have a holiday fetish. But that's about, give or take, 2 months between it. Were you spending all of those 2 months redoing stuff? Or, because I know that for part of those 2 months you were working on Interlude's newest version, and I know I had you working really, really hard on that.
It was actually, it was probably like 70-30, 70 Interlude, 30 Agent of New Worlds is probably how the time split amongst those 2 months.
Oh, okay. And then of course, once you had Interlude out the door, then you could just go 100% time into getting Agent of New Worlds redone.
Yeah.
So how many hours? So in total, how many hours do you think that you spent redoing this?
I would say if you just put it all together, it would be like a week of 8-hour days, probably something to that effect.
Like all 7 of those 8-hour days, like 56 hours. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
something
so I, honestly, I don't think that when people watch the new version, they would even think it was 56 hours. Like, like a little change here, a little change there. You cut this, you trim that, whatever. But it really is much more difficult, much more challenging to both create a fan film and also to change an existing fan film than I think any of us realize, including me when I started having Josh make little tweaks and changes. Of course, he wanted to make the tweaks and changes to Interlude as well. It wasn't just me saying, Josh, do this. No. He was like, oh, I think as long as we're doing this, might as well do this too.
Yeah, that was kind of a let's make a deal situation where we talked about it, decided to do it. I think it worked out pretty good.
I think it did too. All righty, so going from the new shuttle shot to H25. So once again, another jump of 5 minutes of fan film time. So you cut several seconds off of the shot of Pixie getting up. So let's see Pixie getting up the first time. All right, and now Pixie gets up a little faster. Let's see the shortened version. Okay, so why did you decide to cut a couple of seconds off of Pixie getting up?
It just, to me, was weighing it down too much. There wasn't, we were losing the sense of urgency in it. And that's my normal kind of default, is I tend to try and just, I'll lay everything out and then I'll just cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. And I actually had thought about cutting a lot more of the whole film down a little bit more, but decided I didn't want to take away from any of the character moments, and that for it to be like a film about two friends, lost on an alien planet, it was kind of the pace that it needed to be. But this is a fight scene with a little bit more urgency, and it just kind of took her forever to, do her thing and get up. So I figured I'd just, cut a few seconds off, and that way it wasn't, slowing this fight scene down.
Now, did that affect the music?
A little bit. But what I did was I just cut the music out with it. And so I just kind of listened for beats in it and cut through, so it doesn't like stutter or something like that. I just made kind of some clean cuts.
Little chop, stitch back together. Yeah. Okay. I've done
pretty
that too.
much. Yeah. Worked out fine. And I do that sometimes, and I probably shouldn't, but I do it anyway. And it worked out okay.
We won't tell anybody. Well, we just did. All right. At 1923, you changed 2 phaser beams again. So let's see the original phaser beams. And here are the changed phaser beams. Okay, pretty much just the same story as the phaser beams before. Yeah.
So again, look at, if you like still frame them or you look at them really closely, it's not just like a straight white beam shooting out of it. There's kind of a particle effect to it. It's affecting the air around it a little bit. There's a little kind of a electroplasmic, energy kind of circulating the beams a little bit. Especially when you look at the shot where the beam is hitting the egg, you can see like it's maybe sort of affecting the air in the area around the beam a little bit. And then it just, blows the egg away. Funny little tidbit about that table is that the thing that the egg is sitting in is actually a dog bowl. So like a dog's water bowl.
Your dog's water bowl? Do you have a dog?
No, it was just Glenn looked at, it was originally the Iconian table in Air and Darkness. And so he was trying to like replicate the Iconian, panel from Contagion, the TNG episode. And he sees this, thing on the table, and he's like, it kind of looks like a dog bowl. So he just went to the store and got a $1 dog bowl and like spray painted it silver. And the whole thing with this is we're kind of poking fun at Air and Darkness a little bit, kind of poking fun at ourselves. So we reused that table, because it's like, oh, they're going to go into an alien chamber and find a powerful artifact and all that. So because that's what we did in the last story arc. And so it's just being silly. So we reused the same table because we already had it. He just kind of painted it a different color. And then, of course, the egg itself is kind of the 23rd century Avalon Universe version of the Ferengi thought maker device. And it's also what's putting out this really powerful dampening field. But it may be kind of that Ferengi device is being amplified by another power source that even the Ferengi found on this planet. So it may not be something that they themselves put there. They just sort of used it.
Well, whatever works, I guess. That's got to be a rule of acquisition. Hey, whatever works.
Right? Found it, might as well use it.
Yeah, finders keepers. That's going to be a rule of acquisition. Finders keepers, losers reapers. I'm guessing we got that from the Ferengi.
Yeah.
All righty, so let's move on to 1929. You added communicator beeps and the emergency beacon. So let's hear it without the communicator beeps. And now let's hear it with the communicator beeps. Alrighty, I probably don't even need to ask you why you would put those in there because it makes more sense with them in there, right?
Right. So there was one thing that we talked about is that it's kind of, a little bit ex deus machina, that as soon as they blow up the egg that they get beamed up. But I kind of wanted the rescue to be a surprise. I wanted them, getting beamed up to be something that surprised them. But so it's like, we wanted to kind of maybe justify it a little bit. So what you hear is the communicator beeps and then the emergency signal. So what that signified was, as soon as the dampening field was down, their communicators pierced the interference, made contact with the Excalibur. That's where the beeps are coming from. They made contact. And then they were programmed to automatically emit an emergency beacon. And of course, when a starship detects the emergency beacon from the communicator, that's an automatic beam up. So at least it makes a little bit.
Go. Do not collect $200. This is
it makes the whole sequence make a little bit more sense. So
works for me. Okay, well then we will jump over to 2407. Another 5-minute time jump here. You improve the chroma key effect and change the background to be more appropriate to the scene with a new background plate taken at Neutral Zone Studios. Okay, so this is a shot of Ioka entering engineering. I do like that shot. And initially you had her, I guess you did have her chroma keyed, you just had her chroma keyed against what? What is the background we're about to show?
So essentially she was originally chroma keyed against the same corridor at Warp 66 where they were just standing in the previous scene.
Okay, so let's take a look at that first. Yeah. Let's take a look at that corridor. And here is the new version of Ahsoka entering engineering. And you can see that there's something different behind her. Okay, so now you put her against a new corridor that you just filmed at Neutral Zone Studios, and you shot this during the weekend of the BJO Awards, right?
That's right.
So you went down there basically, as long as you were down there anyway, you knew what shots you were going to want to get, and you just grabbed them based on knowing what you wanted to do.
Yeah. It was a deal where it's like, we're going down there anyway. We might as well take some background plates and some stuff that we're actually going to use. That way, there's some productivity in the trip, and we were helping Ray out in some other ways, so he was really sweet about letting us take a few shots we could use.
Yeah. So let me ask a question. How long of a drive is it from Bentonville, Arkansas to Neutral Zone Studios in Kingsland, Georgia?
It's like 16 hours.
Do you happen to know what that measures in terms of mileage?
It's a lot. It's like it's over 1,200. I'd have to look it up, but it's like, say you leave this area at 6 a.m. I think I left my house at 5:30. I picked up my friend Neil at 6. Then we drove down I-40 to close to Little Rock, where Pixie lives. She lives in Maumelle, which is close to Little Rock. We picked her up about 9 a.m. and we got to Kingsland at 1:30, 2 a.m, something like that.
Okay. So, now, when you said 1,200 miles, is that round trip or is that
one way? Yeah.
One way. Okay, so 1,200 one way means 2,400 round trip, right?
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
You're adding that to the total tally.
Because you use footage that was for Neutral Zone Studios. So you have now gone up from 5,500 miles driven for one fan film now to just about 8,000 miles. You have literally, Josh, just so you know, you have literally driven almost a third the way around the globe circumferentially to make a fan film.
But that's part of the fun of it, because that would seem like it's ridiculous. But
and it is. Just so
then
you know,
again,
it's ridiculous.
that's what was fun about it. You know, I really didn't like the previous background, and you know, it was a deal where we only had Jennifer for a certain amount of time, like because of her schedule, we only had her certain days and during the shoot, so we had to like get the most out of her. And I knew that I wanted this shot, and so like we were doing some green screen stuff, and I just had her do this shot on it because we were going to do a clothing change and a hair change and all that kind of stuff. So I had her do it on the green screen real fast. I was split on whether I wanted to I didn't want to just shoot it at the location because it looked like you were in the same place, but I ended up using that. I just didn't like it. So I decided that it would be more appropriate to put this background behind her. And then I took a lot more time to work on the key and get the key figured out because it was a difficult chroma key. And so it looks way better than it did before. And I did a lot more color grading and color correction with her. So she blends a lot better. So it's just overall, it's a much better shot. And it makes sense because you don't want to go from one corridor to the exact same corridor you were in the last scene. And then I think it took away from the dramatic impact of the scene to do that. So.
Well, that's true. Actually, the thing I noticed was her disappearing hair in the first one. That little ponytail there, and you can see it much better in the second one.
Yeah, it worked out a lot better the second time around. I spent a lot more time on that key and figured it out. So thank goodness.
All right. And then just 10 seconds later, you added a new USS Excalibur dedication plaque and turbolift alcove graphic. So let's take a look at what the bridge used to look like. And here's a shot of the brand new and improved alcove by the turbolift. Take a look. So this must have been a pain in the tuchus to get this new plaque on there.
I would have saved myself a lot of time had I done this in pre-production. But there were so many things that were just going completely crazy with this shoot that, it's just something it's slipped my mind for years. And it's always been one of these things that's fallen through the cracks, is getting a plaque, an Excalibur plaque. And so like originally what I did is the plaque was for like the USS Hood for Federation Files episode Doppelganger. That's what was up there. So originally what I did was I blurred it. Well, at the time also when we filmed this, the upgraded Excalibur was not finished. So Sam and his team had actually not finished creating the updated model of the Excalibur with its new look. So when I went back in post, I now had that, and he had given me this really neat set of graphics where he did sort of this rotation with it that I thought was super cool. Now, what I had to do is I had to motion track all of this stuff, put it on, over what was there originally. And then I had to rotoscope our actor who walks in front. And so that was literally just almost a whole day in and of itself, just doing that. So what I did was I created that Excalibur plaque in Photoshop. And then I ended up, inserting it there in After Effects. And as soon as I was done, I'm like, I don't want to have this problem again. So I immediately took the source file, the Photoshop source file, and just sent it to Glenn and was like, can you make me a plaque? And he's like, yeah, I'll take care of it. There it is. And he's like, okay, that looks pretty good. So we'll actually have a real one the next time we film, which is literally in 2 weeks, at least from when we're recording this. And then I'm not going to be able to do like a motion graphic, like what's going on here, but I will create a new alcove graphic to put over the existing one. So it'll at least be the updated design and not kind of the old looking Constitution design there.
So whenever you have a shot on the bridge and you're just sort of looking at Chakande or whatever with the turbolift behind them, are you going to have to animate that now each time?
No, because in this episode, I chose not to do that in the other shot that you would see this in and just hope that no one notices. It's very apparent here. So I did want to change it here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, and we did this before when we made Warp 66 an Ares class, is we created a USS Athena graphic that we put over that graphic in the alcove, and it works pretty well. So I'm going to create a new one that's similar to this, but it's not going to move, but it will be at least one that has the new design on it. And that way we don't have to like motion track it in post, because that really sucks.
Well, I'd like to point out to everybody that I didn't make Josh do it this time. That was all.
No, he didn't make me do it. It wasn't him. It wasn't Jonathan's fault this time.
No. Although it sort of was, because you said you Jonathaned yourself. So
I Jonathaned myself.
I inspired you, or whatever, or you have post-traumatic Jonathan syndrome, and you just can't.
I may, or maybe I just started thinking, maybe I should pay more attention to detail the way Jonathan does. Maybe I should split the difference, maybe not be as obsessive, but more obsessive than I am at least.
It's very difficult to be as obsessive as I am. But by the way, if you want, just sort of go up to the top of the screen right now. And everybody take a look at that little film strip at the top, where it says Fan Film Factor. And those 3 little graphics that are in it, I make a different one of those every time a fan film comes out. So every fan film gets a different header. If it's a fan film that's interview worthy, or feature worthy. I mean, if it's just like a quick little news story, I don't do it. But yeah, that's the level of detail that Jonathan burdens himself with. Yeah,
I will say this, and it would make heads explode if you told it to me a year ago. But I did go to Jonathan, with regards to text in the opening and closing credits, and got some advice on how to reformat text. So that's another change between the original and this version, was that I actually asked you for notes on reformatting the text, and you gave them to me, and I used all of them. So, well,
that comes to the fact that I went to design school. So, Josh went to film school. Josh understands film editing in a way that I never will. I understand graphic design and font selection and laying things out, where to, justify versus center and whatever else. That's my degree, or my associate's degree. My actual degree is psychology, which I don't use. But 2 years in design school. And yes, go ahead.
You were a creative director for 12 years.
Oh, where have I heard that before? Josh knows my script. Yes, I was. I was creative director for 12 years. Okay, anyway, let's get back to our list here. So let's see. At 24:31, just 14 seconds after last one, you changed the screens behind Chakande to AU, which is Avalon Universe, I'm guessing. Not Avalon, Avalon Universe.
Right.
Yeah. Don't mix my A's up. Anyway, so let's take a look at what the screens look like before.
Welcome to the bridge, Commander.
This ship is so beautiful. I haven't seen these upgrades yet.
Please, take your station.
And here's what the Avalon Universe screens look like behind Chakande's head.
Welcome to the bridge, Commander.
This ship is so beautiful. I haven't seen these upgrades yet.
Please, take your station.
So how tough was that, just to make those changes?
Again, it was another full day in and of itself just to do that. because I had to, of course, if the camera moved, which it did a little bit, I had to move the screens with the camera. I had to do some rotoscoping where, of course, you see Ashley standing in front of it. You see Jaconde standing in front of it a little bit. You see the Spock scanner. Like I literally had to make a mask on the Spock scanner and track that and put a graphic behind that. So it was like, it was a lot of work, and I'm still not completely satisfied with it, but it's better than it was. So
you get yourself into this, dude.
Watch it. It sucks, but if it goes by real fast, it looks pretty good. So.
By the way, I just want to say hi to your kids in the background, who I'm sure are playing with their Christmas presents.
Oh yeah, they're in the next room going crazy, all three of them.
That's what they're supposed to do. Everybody, when you hear the sound of children screaming at each other, that's just post-Christmas until they go back to school again. Enjoy it. It's the sound of children's laughter and screaming. Anyway, okay, so let's see. You also corrected in the next thing about a minute or so later. You corrected the focus on the screens behind Jaconde. So yes, I noticed this actually the first time I saw it. So let's take a look at the focus on the screens behind Jaconde in the before version.
The Cavus Alpha Star System.
And now the after version.
The Cavus Alpha Star System.
So first of all, I'm going to ask, how did the focus get all screwed up in the first version of it?
Because they're not there. That's also a post effect. So when those screens were put on in post, I didn't blur them enough. And so it was like I blurred them, but I didn't blur them enough. And I was going too fast how I was working. And I just was like, oh, the blur is just not right. Like there is a blur, but it's not enough blur. So I went back and blurred it more. And I actually did that in a few places. That's just one where it really stuck out to me. But there were like 2 or 3 other places where I did that. And then there's one shot with Allenby where there's a rack focus where it rack focuses from Jaconde to her. And I had to go make the screens rack focus because none of those screens were there.
For those people who didn't go to film school, can you very quickly explain what a rack focus is? I think I know, but.
So what you would technically be changing is focal distance, meaning something closer to the camera versus farther away. You change the distance to where the lens is focused at. So like you go from something closer to the camera to something far away. We call that a rack focus, where you essentially change your focus from foreground to background. And so if you're gonna insert graphics in post, they should also change focus with the rest of the shot, or else it'll look completely weird.
Yeah, there's no reason for something that's at the same distance that's out of focus to be in focus when something else is out of focus. So you got
one interesting thing real quick that isn't a change, but just something that I love doing at 2543 thereabouts. We never would see inside the Spock scanner. Like we would never really see what they're looking at there. And so this is the second time in an Avalon film that we've gone inside the Spock scanner to see the screen there. So I just thought that was kind of a fun thing to do, just an alternate way to move the story along and see something we don't see a lot of. And you don't want to do just a lot of somebody looks down and looks back up. I mean, I guess you could do that in the 60s, or you had no choice in the 60s, but now you can go inside the screen and see it. And that was fun to do. I did a similar thing earlier in the film where we saw some close-ups of the tricorder. And so I just thought it was fun to kind of look at some of the instrumentation close up.
I remember in Paragon's Paragon, one of the very first Star Trek fan films ever made with sets back in 1974. They built a bridge set and they had built Spock's visor, and they wanted it to glow out, to actually, get the glow on the actor's face. And they used this huge bulb, and it was so hot that they could only leave it on for like a few seconds. And even for those few seconds, it was the point where, the guy playing Spock looking into it, first of all, he was almost blinded every time he looked down. And there was so much heat that he couldn't actually get too close to it to look into the visor, because there was that much heat radiating from the bulb. And then immediately they had to get the bulb off and had to get him out of the way. That was 1974. But yeah, I think, something probably similar happened with Leonard Nimoy and his. I don't know how they got that glow to come out of there to light it up. Do you know how they did that back in the 60s to get that glow to come out of there and light him?
I mean, they probably did something similar. They probably just had a bulb inside of the Spock scanner. I will say that if you talk about, that's one of the interesting things about trying to recreate TOS or do TOS today, is that back when it was shot, it was like 50 speed film. It was really insensitive. And so they were having to use 2 and 5,000 watt lights on everything. So they're like, if you look at behind the scenes pictures, they're just these giant lights that are wiping everything out. So yeah, they would have had to have some sort of like focused instrument. Maybe you if you had enough space, you'd take a Fresnel and you'd get it on a stand below the set and shoot it up through the set. Maybe, I don't know particularly what they did, but that's what I would do if I were doing it back then. Just rig it up. Of course, you'd probably blind the actor if you did it. Give him Klieg eye. You don't want to do that. But today we're shooting. That was 50 ISO essentially, and today we're shooting at 2500 ISO. So the cameras are a lot more sensitive, and we're using LEDs and all kinds of modern technology to do this. With Star Trek Continues, they used the same type of lights. They used quartz Fresnels, but they were a lot lower in intensity. They, instead of being, a 5,000 watt light, it'd be like a 600 watt light. But even like the camera that they used to shoot Continues is like way out of date now. So we need a lot less light these days, and the lighting instruments have changed a lot. And I'm not trying to, and I've gotten panned for this even in the last 24 hours, people making nasty comments about Avalon Universe, that it's not faithful to Star Trek. And it's like, well, it's not supposed to be faithful to TOS. It's Avalon Universe. It's
Avalon Universe. So, people are always going to complain about something. Just give them something to complain about. Make them happy.
We're trying to do new things. I mean, I don't want to do something someone's already done. That's not the point of what I'm doing. We want to try new things. We want to do different things. What we want to be faithful to is telling the kinds of stories that they were trying to tell in Star Trek. So, it has that hopeful, optimistic view of the future is one thing that we're going to continue to be faithful to.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. All right, let's bring this home. So we have 2 more, and this is one of my favorite ones, actually. So at 2549, the new main view screen VFX shot created from a new plate taken at neutral zone after the Picho Awards. So if you want to look at the first one, this is your very, very standard. You've seen this a million times in TOS and most fan films. This is your standard view screen. Let's take a look at your standard view screen.
Isn't there a dense neutron star in that system?
And now let's take a look at the new angle.
Isn't there a dense neutron star in that system?
So I love that. I mean, it's sort of like if there was an Oompa Loompa at navigation, that's what you would see. But I love that. You're going right through the, right through the console. That was, what made you think of doing that?
Okay, so there is a story to this. The first one that we did, that we used in the first version, was taken in May when I went down to neutral zone to shoot the Doomsday film that Ray Tessie's doing, that I'm doing with him. And that was just one of the plates that I shot while I was down there. And I didn't completely like it. I didn't like the way that it was lit. Again, that was a day that we were working really hard those 2 days. It was hot in the studio, and the lighting just wasn't what I was hoping for. There's some things like you can see the shadows of the railing on the wall because they're trying to get some light on the green. And what they did in between is they converted from doing a green screen behind the viewer to actually having a projector back there. Now, I didn't utilize the projector. I still did the effect in post, but they were doing their set walkthroughs that day. So, of course, Vic was doing walkthroughs of the set with some of their fans, because it was fan appreciation. They had the fan appreciation weekend. Then they did the Bijos. And so Dan Scanlon, I have to credit him for this, because he did a social media post where he just took that angle with his phone, where he had his phone with those buttons in the foreground and the view screen in the background. And I was looking at that going, Dan, that is an amazing angle. Like that looks really super cool. And then so I decided I'd already planned on doing a new view screen plate. So when we did this, I replicated that angle. So I have to give him the shout out on that because Dan Scanlon's where I got the idea for that. So that was his deal. I'm totally ripping it off. But it was cool. And what's interesting, and I may send you some elements to include on this, is if you look at that shot as it was taken, it looks very different than this. There was a lot of work done in post on this shot, making the view screen itself brighter, making the walls on the sides a little darker, making the buttons glow a little bit more, the view screen itself glow a little bit. And then, of course, I added on the nav console one of our Avalon Universe graphics and corner pinned that. And again, that's a lot of hours in After Effects, for like a 3-second shot or whatever it is, but put one of our graphics there and it looks super cool, made it glow. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. Let me, as a photographer, I understand, and you as a film editor probably understand, making everything in focus is difficult when something really, really close, like the buttons, is at a completely different focal length than the screen behind it. So I'm asking you from a technical standpoint, was that just something that your camera naturally captured, or did you have to take two different focal length shots and merge them together?
No, it's just one shot. And I wanted the buttons in the foreground to be, it's reverse bokeh. That's what we call it. Back when I was in film school, they called it circles of confusion. But sometime in the past 15 years, they've come up with this term called bokeh, which is, when you see lights in the background and they go out of focus and they look real, fuzzy and dreamlike, and it's really beautiful thing. Well, this is like reverse bokeh because the bokeh's in the foreground. And so I wanted those buttons out of focus. And then in turn, when I inserted the graphic that's on the nav console, also, when I inserted that in post, I made that out of focus as well and took some time to match the focus on the glowing graphic to the buttons. And then, of course, everything in the background's in focus. And then I sort of corner pinned and tracked the view screen graphic itself. It's on the viewer. It's just such a beautiful view screen that they built down at Neutral Zone.
That's true.
Just not use it. It's just like it really adds dimension to the bridge to be able, because the Warp 66 bridge, it's like it's the half circle. It's literally like goes helm and nav from one side to helm and nav on the other, and then just hits the wall of the building it's in. And you have all the angles you need to shoot in because it's the same amount of bridge that was in New Voyages, because it's the New Voyages bridge, which is ironic because this is the Continues bridge where we're showing the view screen. But it just gives you a little bit more. And so many, for a long time, even when they shot Continues, they didn't have a view screen there. And so a lot of the films that have been shot at Neutral Zone, there was never a view screen. They had to cut to a CG graphic or something. And it was cool just to get some neat angles. The previous view screen shot we used in other episodes was like the Starbase Studios view screen. And I had to do things like create the neon in post, whereas this has the neon physically there. So it's just, you're actually having it, light up parts of the set. So it's too neat not to use.
Bad films are so cool.
Yeah.
Reasons I do this.
Now we're hoping to restore that Exeter bridge. Warp 66 Studios is working on a full restoration of that old Exeter bridge, with restoring the view screen as well. And I think it'll also
have a full 360.
Have a full 360 like before with the neon. So that's in
a new location, I'm guessing, because Glenn's current room is not big enough for.
Yeah, so the bridge as it exists now is actually in one of Dan's facilities. Dan has several different facilities, and so they're building the 360 bridge in it's in a different facility. It's actually not even in the same town. It's like in a completely different town from the rest of the sets. And then it's actually, the bridge for Warp 66 and then the rest of Warp 66 are in two different towns. So it's like it's a 40-minute drive from the bridge to the briefing room and the transporter room and everything else.
It's a long turbo lift drive, and that's honestly just more miles on the old Josh mobile. Yeah, more miles to make your fan film.
I love Warp 66. It's such a great, fun place to shoot, and a lot of wonderful memories and good people to hang out. And Neutral Zone too. I just love both studios. They're both an adventure. Both have a different vibe to them, and great people, operating the place.
And a different vibe to Aries Studios, because you shot there as
Totally
well.
Different. Yeah.
Because that one is a full 360-degree bridge.
It is. I think they need a Cylon and a neon on their view screen, but we'll see.
Well, aside from that. All right. Anyway, let's see. Our last one, folks. We made it. At 2720, corrected credits text formatting. And this comes back to getting the notes from Jonathan. So let's take a look at what the credits look like at the beginning and see if you can decide one of these things is not like the others.
Right.
Did you notice that? Yeah, Josh, very, very humble, doesn't capitalize his name with all caps. He just put it capitals and lowercase, that's fine. That's fine, as long as everybody's the same way. But as soon as you get to the next guy and he's all caps and everybody else is all caps, that's the first thing I said to Josh when I saw the first name in New World. I said, you're very humble, but you might want to capitalize your name.
Right.
So let's take a look at the final version here. And there we go. All is consistent again.
Right. It's subtle, but again, I'm going to send you a screenshot of the timeline that you can put up. And as you can see, looking at the timeline, it's rather complicated because I'm doing, what on a real movie would be a lot of different jobs: sound mixing, editing, vis effects. And so there are just layers upon layers and cuts upon cuts. And the whole thing is so complex that it's actually baked into the process that you're just going to miss stuff, or you're going to screw something up, or you're going to overlook a detail. And so it's really, really good to get a second set of eyes to go over things yourself. Glenn's really good about going through and looking stuff. And then you always give me really good thoughts on things too. So I actually sought you out and said, hey, I want to make sure all my text is formatted the way it should. And you gave me, it was the first time I ever asked Jonathan Lane for a set of notes and was happy to get it back. So.
Oh man, an interlude, I gave you so many notes, and I'm sure every single time, like 24 different notes. It's like 2 minutes of film. But yeah, that was. But you know what? That's the thing when you're making fan films. If you're making them all by yourself, you might miss stuff, and there are other people who will catch stuff that you don't. And it's the same thing with writing. I edit my own stuff, and when I do a blog, I read it through 2 or maybe 3 times, and still there are typos that get past 2 or 3 proofreads because I just don't notice what I did wrong.
Right.
So, if you're a fan filmmaker, I know everybody, wants to rush to get their stuff out, but, give it to somebody that you trust to take a second look, and tell them to be brutally honest. You can always ignore what they say.
I'm dyslexic too. So especially with text and stuff like that, it's helpful to have someone else look at it.
Dyslexics of the world untie. I didn't know you were dyslexic. Well, in that case, your credits look even better than one would expect.
Well, so the cheat here, and I don't know if it's an homage to Jonathan or stealing from Jonathan.
Either way,
fine. But if you look at the credits and the way the credits are structured, I just adapted the interlude credits for all of the Avalon films. I'm like, I went through the trouble of making this template for all of these credits, and it looks pretty good. So I might as well just keep using it. So it's basically the interlude credits ported into the timeline.
You guys don't want to know how many times Josh had to go and make changes to the interlude credits.
We were doing it right up until the fan film version of it as well.
Yeah, that was there's so many different little things when you do credits. I haven't even done a blog on credits yet. I don't even know if I want to, but there's just so much detail, and from getting people's names wrong in terms of spelling, to getting their titles wrong, to getting stuff in the wrong order,
to leaving them out altogether,
accidentally leaving them out altogether, or putting somebody in who doesn't want to be put in. And God forbid you have 400 donors. That's a challenge and a half to keep all of those, especially if they're at different levels and you have to keep them alphabetical. If you look through the interlude credits, you will notice that almost every single donor is alphabetical, but a couple aren't, because those are the ones like, oh. And some of them were like, do you want your name to read this or this? They gave me a pseudonym or whatever, but I know what their real name is. Do you want the pseudonym or do you want the real name? And like just a couple of days before we go live, they finally get back. It's like, no, I'll take my real name. Because you're down here right now. I have to move you up here. Oh man.
So there you go. I mean, it's one thing you're almost guaranteed to screw up somehow.
Yep. And somehow somebody will let you know.
And it was actually the credits that was really causing me a heartache at the end of the process, because the scrolling credits at the end, I do those in a completely different program. So I do it like Adobe After Effects, and then that's supposed to ripple through to Adobe Premiere. They're supposed to talk natively, and then you encode that out and you post it. Well, I would see it on the timeline. It would encode it would ripple through to the timeline, but then when I would post it on YouTube, it would be screwed up. And it was like, and I wouldn't see it until I had posted it already. And so I had to go take it down and fix it. And I ended up having to encode a separate file of the scrolling credits and import that instead of going through the native After Effects deal, because that was the only way I could get it to ripple through to the actual finished file. So that's why it got posted more than once, is because I had to go back and fix that.
Yes, because Agent of New Worlds was posted 24 hours before it was posted.
Yeah,
the second version, that is, because I was starting to watch it, and it was Christmas. I didn't want to sleep. I want Santa Claus to come, but actually he'd already come by that point. It was the 25th. But anyway, so I went to watch it the next day. This is where double check everything, and it's gone. It was gone.
Yep.
And Josh reposted it. Okay, you're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah, you really probably shouldn't do that, but I just kept telling myself there are no fan film police that are going to come and arrest us for doing it. And
where have I heard that before too?
I wanted it to be I wanted it to be as good as it could be. Now it's a situation where you're literally never going to walk away from a film completely happy with it. You're not going to go, it's perfect. I don't know if you feel that way about Interlude. I don't know, but I know that I never walk away from a film feeling like it's perfect. Now that's not a reflection on anyone else that worked on it. It's a reflection on me, because I look at all of the things I could have done better or I could have done differently. And so, yeah, there are a lot of things about this film still that I look at and wish I could have done that better. But for the most part, it's all stuff I can't change. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I honestly started learning that in art school, not art school, in high school, but in my art class. My art teacher, Mrs. Galula, in high school, she used to come behind me and she used to whisper in my ear, Giacomitti's brother. And this was a code for me. Apparently, there was a medieval sculptor by the name of Giacomitti's. I think that was his name. But apparently, he was a little not right in the head. And so he was very obsessive, just like I was. And so his brother was his patron. So he would bring these huge blocks of marble, 7-foot big blocks of marble, and Giacomitti's would start sculpting away and chiseling and whatever, and weeks would go by, and start looking really, really beautiful. Chisel a little bit here, a little bit more there, and still looking beautiful, and chisel and chisel. Eventually, he chiseled it down so that the big block was you could hold in your hand. And his brother began to realize that all of his money that was being spent on marble was being swept off the floor at the end of the day. And you could sell a big marble statue for a lot more than you can sell a little trinket that hangs from your neck. So what he started doing, because Giacomitti's was just not quite all there, is he would wait until Giacomitti's got tired and went to sleep, and he would go in the middle of the night with moving people and carts and decide which pieces were done and he would move them out. And when Giacome's would get there the next morning, there would be a brand new block, and he was not quite all there, like I said. So he was just like, okay, new block, and just started doing it again. So his brother was the one who decided when they were done. And so what Mrs. Galula was telling me by Giacome's brothers, you need to have a part of your head that says you're done. And
Yeah.
that's and honestly, I think that's where we are, with our fan films. We're done with Interlude. I'm not going to be making a version 4 of Interlude. I don't think Josh is going to want me to make a version 4 of Interlude. We're done. Are there some things that could potentially be made better? Possibly, but we're done. Giacome's brother.
If you wanted to. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
work on it forever. And so it's like, art is never finished. It's only abandoned. So these 2 films have now been abandoned, and it's time to move on to the next one. But we had fun doing it. And, we are proud. I'm proud of the work that everyone put into it. I'm really proud of Pixie, of my friend Neil, of Earl and Beck Hale, of, just everybody that put time and effort into this. Aaron McNeil, Jennifer Rader, Warren, the list goes on and on of people. Josh Diener, who is a location scout. Just a lot of people who put a lot of their time and their effort and their money into this, and they did a wonderful job. And I think that it's a good film on the other side. And the fact that it's a film on the other side, period, is kind of a big deal. And that's something I don't want anyone to ever lose sight of, because it's like, it's so easy to talk about it. It's so easy to even go out and shoot. But when your film encounters adversity, that's the true test of what it is if it can overcome that adversity. And this film certainly has overcome a lot of adversity. And the fact that it's here is a testament to the dedication of the people who worked on it. And I'm really proud of all of them.
Now, here, I'm going to give them applause too, because, I know the adversity that Josh was dealing with, because he was the one who called me on his way back from Arizona, telling me that he had just filmed, for 24 hours, and he couldn't use pretty much 90% of the footage. And like, okay, when you drive all the way to Arizona and you come back with footage you can't use. And then he hired another actress to play Ayoka. And then she ended up getting called away to Los Angeles to, have a good break with her career, and like, hey, good luck with your fan film. But they'd already filmed some of her stuff. And so, the Jennifer Rader, and you found her only just a couple of days before filming. And, every time God, the universe, the whatever, put, the cue, just put an obstacle in front of you, you either drove over it or more likely around it for about 3,000 or 4,000 miles, but you made it through. So, honestly, the folks at Avalon Universe, I'm gonna put in a little pitch for your crowdfunder, which, by the way, you didn't do on your post there, not even on the description. You have a little link to your GoFundMe. You might as well do that now. But give these people money. I'm just going to say it. They are doing, I'm going to say the Lord's work. They're doing the great bird's work. They are putting their hearts, their souls, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their gasoline miles into making these films for us, for the fans. And they're doing an amazing job. And, I've donated to Avalon. I have promoted their GoFundMe campaigns. Their current campaign is at 12,500 right now. They're about on the way to 20. It's probably going to get replaced by a brand new one, so that you can just sort of like, okay, we just got to get to 7,500 or maybe 10,000 or whatever. Right now, in these 5 seconds, if you have a little extra money left over because you've spent, not as much on Christmas as you thought you would, or if you're just, in a giving mood, feel free to go over, visit that crowdfunder. $10, $20 is fine. Anything. It all is getting spent wisely. There is not any real waste on this fan film, and I've seen these guys do an amazing job of keeping costs down and just, spending donated dollars wisely. So some fans are like, I don't like the, gifts because I don't know what they're spending the money on. It's like, these guys are spending the money on a wonderful fan film. They're releasing 2, sometimes 3 or more a year. I know what's coming up.
Yeah.
2 awesome fan films are coming. Like you said, the next one is going to start filming in a few weeks. And then the one after that is going to be a really, really fun one too. So we're going to try to fund those, get you the money, and just go off and make more wonderful entertainment.
The one that we're about to do is going to be very, I feel, Roddenberry-esque. It's going to be not a lot of, gunfire and all of that, but it's going to be a character story that's a morality play about a downtrodden character. And we're going to take a classic Star Trek idea, and we're going to flip the script on it and do a new take on it. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a really powerful story. It's not going to be quite as silly and as Agent of New Worlds. It's going to have its silly moments for sure, because we put those in every film because that's our voice. But it's going to be a serious, powerful film about a character, taking ownership of her life.
And my thought about this is, yes, it's Gene Roddenberry-esque, but if Gene Roddenberry were making Star Trek in 2021 and or 2022,
that's the goal.
Because a lot of Gene's forward thinking in 1966 and 1967 is not seen as backward thinking right now, but it's sort of seen like, well, of course. But I think that now it's much more interesting to take some of what Gene Roddenberry did back then and say, okay, well, it's 55 years later. The world's changed. The message has changed. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. And then the one after that is just going to be the fun romp of Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. And
that's the popcorn film of the year. So
yeah, that one, I'm so looking forward to that. Anyway, Josh, I'm sure we've gone way over time, but your kids are quiet, so perhaps you don't need to go out there anymore. That's really great.
All right.
So anyway, but thank you for your time. I will try to have this up the next few days so people can see it before the end of the year. But anyway, I hope that you have a happy and wonderful new year with your family and with your other family on the Avalon Universe.
Same to you.
Live long and prosper. That's what we say.